Hello, my name is Caitlin Atkins, and this is my BioLab final presentation for Bio 282. So the New York Times article that I chose was called As Climate Warms, Plants Will Absorb Less Carbon Dioxide, Study Finds. The key points of this article was that plants actually don't uptake more carbon if there's more in the atmosphere, despite what some people think. And it uses a study that was published the same day as its source for this information. It states that the climate is definitely getting warmer and that warmth causes the soil to dry, which causes stress to plants and makes them unable to absorb as much carbon. It also states that years of extreme weather causes stress, which comes with climate change, and that warmth from climate change causes microorganisms to produce more CO2, which means there's even more CO2 in the atmosphere that plants cannot absorb. It also states that one dry year can't be made up for by one wet year, meaning that the damage done by dry soil cannot be made up for by making the soil wet. The article uses the primary source as the content. It was also published the same day as the article, as previously mentioned. The article also includes it includes interview quotes from one of the authors of the study. The primary source is also directly linked in the article, and the authors are directly mentioned. However, the article only includes paraphrasing and summarizing of the primary source, and not any quotes. So, the primary source is called Large Influence of Soil Moisture on Long-Term Terrestrial Carbon Uptake. Key points is that dry soil causes carbon dioxide uptake to decrease, that the soil is already drying in many regions, and that warming climate causes the soil to dry even faster, which results in, quote, accelerated atmospheric CO2 growth, unquote. The article states that they used Glacium IP5 to measure interaction between plants and atmosphere in different environmental conditions. They state that plants won't be able to absorb excess CO2 if the soil is dry due to water stress, and that vegetation death rate is higher when soil is dry, also leading to less carbon uptake. The figure on the right shows that as the soil gets more wet, which is most of the lines, the carbon uptake actually increases and is predicted to increase over the years if the soil is actually more wet. So some of the similarities and differences between the articles and the primary source. The article outlines key points in the primary source, such as that the dry soil leads to less carbon absorption. It also includes comments from one of the authors of the journal, and the information is mostly accurate. However, the article doesn't reference actual data from the primary source, and it doesn't include figures or talk about methods of the study or data collection. The information in the article is very general and not specific as opposed to the primary source. And the article focuses on climate change when vegetation mortality and stress on ecosystem water were also topics discussed in the primary source. So overall, they were similar to each other, but the New York Times article was very general and glossed over parts of the journal. So how it relates to Bio 282 is it talks about the carbon and nutrient cycle as well as climate change, which was partly also first semester. It talks about carbon and water and plant nutrients, which is a part of the cell respiration and photosynthesis, which were both major topics in class, and talks about disruption of energy production and identification of what processes are being disrupted during energy production.